Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about stress. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, what do you think is the most important what is the most important thing? How we take or see certain situations or the situation itself? For example, if I work with a coworker who is stressing or pressuring me constantly, should we consider that he or that person is a problem, or I as an individual am the problem because I fail to just detach and stop taking things so seriously? Most of the time I have heard a saying that goes along the lines of reality is not the problem is how you see reality within yourself. Well, uh, this I think that this is probably the best way to describe the fundamental problem of the tension and I think that this tension has been here since forever. I have a hard time. I think that it's more prominent now than ever with PC culture and cancel culture and so forth. Who is the person who is in the right? The person who expresses something, or the person who is negatively impacted by that thing or offended, if we want to use that term? Who is the victim and who is the cause? And in the current environment, what we really like to say is that whatever, if you are offended by something, or if you feel pressured or something negative coming your way, you are the victim, and we will protect the victim, and then we will punish or somehow dissuade the person who is causing the issue. Now, the the issue, I think, is when one of these goes to the extreme, because we've had, and this happens all the time, when one of these sides, regardless of the person who is doing whatever they're doing, putting pressure on you in this scenario, or if they're doing that too much, if they're going to the extreme, I would argue that they are causing a problem. They are actually creating they have a negative impact on you as an individual and probably more people within the workspace. That is not a good thing. But on the other hand, if let's say that you are a very sensitive person and you have a very active inner voice or interpretation of what is being said to you, and well, what might happen in that scenario is that you are actually uh, you're creating an emotional state for yourself, where the intention of the person who's putting pressure on you may not be to hurt you in any fashion. It's simply the fact that you are so sensitive about the thing that it's causing a problem between the two of you. And the same thing goes for, I mean, if you look at comedians who make jokes about different groups of people, and then the groups go and on social media or Twitter or whatever and get very angry about it, when, well, that is a problem, because what's basically happened now is that we have this situation that you're describing. Is it the comedian's fault that they made a joke about some group, or is it the group's fault that they're so sensitive that they can't take a joke? Same thing goes for you. If your coworker is putting pressure on you, is it because that person has unreasonable expectations of you, or is it because they have a temper? Like, are they the problem, or are you either not performing to expectations, or are you very sensitive, or like, it's impossible for me to say. And I would go as far to say that it's probably impossible for anybody to say objectively that one is true and the other is not. And this is based on my experience in this space. I've been here many times before. At the end of the day, I'm very sorry to say, it comes down to a completely subjective thing. It's going to be it's all going to come down to the majority and whoever is in power. Usually, these are the people that's the person who's going to decide what's right and wrong here. There are, of course, laws for extreme cases. I mean, an example would be, historically, women have been subjugated to very, very, very poor work environments due to their gender. And I mean, the attitude back in those days was that, well, you should just be able. I mean, you should just take a joke, or even if it's not actually. I mean, even if we would consider it, we would today consider that to be sexual harassment. Back in those days, anybody who did something like that will very likely have said something along the lines that it was just joke, or it was well intended, or so forth, and you should just kind of, buck up and just take it, right? And we're moving away from that and actually not allowing these more extreme forms of persecution, or like people being attacked in that fashion. But on the other side of the spectrum, there is an extreme on the other side as well, where you can, and that's kind of where we're getting to, I would say today, where people are now afraid to say anything, or to we're getting to almost an anxiety level for a lot of people, where because you can't trust the people who the people you're talking to, how they're going to react. And depending on how sensitive an individual is, well, if they're extremely sensitive, they might actually get you into a lot of trouble. Even if you never intended to say anything, even if you had the most benign intentions in the world, did your best and so forth, anything, like any spontaneous talk or whatever, might actually come back and bite you. And it basically becomes a Big Brother type of society where we're policing each other. And I think that the way that we solve this is the way that you have to solve this yourself. And that is, or rather, this is what I believe that you should do in order to solve this. You have to communicate that you're feeling the stress and pressure with your coworker or to your manager or whatever, and then explain how the situation is making you feel, and then have a conversation. Have a conversation with the individuals that are relevant, and try to figure out what the truth is, because it might be that your coworker is actually out of line and causing either intentionally or unintentionally. You need to figure out what the situation is, if you can resolve it in some fashion. It can also be that you are unfortunately lacking in the skills that they need in that specific company, and you might have to either up your game or do something else, or go to another job or so forth, to let them kind of work in the fashion that they are accustomed to. There's no magic bullet here. There's no real right or wrong, except for, of course, how we look at these things from the perspective of the law. But in between there, you have to figure out this by yourself. And I think that the best way for you to do that is to have these sorts of conversations. So what I want you to take away from this is that I don't think that there is such a way, there is something as easy as saying that either you should just be so tough that, as you were saying, reality is not the problem is how you see reality within yourself. That is a very, very big statement that touches on many, many, many levels. And absolutely, there is a lot of truth to this saying. But at the same time, you have to understand that you as just everybody else, you have things that affect you. And the reality that you find yourself in, well, just because you might be able to just because you're able to justify the actions of somebody else, that doesn't make them right. Because if we took your saying to the extreme, then by definition, anybody who's ever been subjugated to sexual harassment or something worse, or murder or whatever, we should just not persecute anybody who's doing something wrong, because it's really a matter of perspective, right, if they did something wrong. And I don't think that that is a healthy way of looking at things. I think that what you should do is to act in good faith and talk to the people involved. Try to explain how the situation is making you feel. Try to hear their side. Try to go in with an open mind and see if there's a way for you to just figure out if they're doing something unintentionally, and if they can correct that and help you feel more at ease, or if you are doing something that is causing this tension. Try to resolve it. Try to talk about it. Have a great day.